We going old school quick hits with this one right here. I usually joked when I put the disclaimer up on the old episodes, but we're going to be deep diving into a few racy talks today. So, don't say I didn't warn you. Warning. The views and beliefs in the following program does not reflect the views of Boom Broadcasting. We give full creative control to our creators and do not believe in cancel culture because it is, was, and always will be an orchestrated plan by the man. Viewer discretion is advised.
Can't fall off, now they holler he'll turn, thinking I'ma sell out, talking just to feel heard. I never listen, although they say it's strictly.
Welcome to Quick Hits. I'm your host, Shannon Smith, aka Podcast Smitty. If you're new to the show, what's good? I'm Shannon. I'm a fan of sport. And Quick Hits is dropping weekly to discuss headlines in the field of sports. So if that's what you like, go ahead and give this video a like. And go ahead and get into the comments. I would love to hear what you have to say. I love debating and discussing sports. That's right up my alley. But most importantly, if you haven't already, go ahead and subscribe to the Boom Broadcasting YouTube channel and go through the plethora of podcasts that we have in the field of TV and movies and sports. So without further ado, let's start the show. So let's start off with the first quick hit here because the NFL, even though they're in the offseason, they got to collect some money. Sadly, it was on the behest of the Atlanta Falcons and their defensive coordinator, Jeff Ulbrich. The Falcons were fined $250,000, and Jeff Ulbrich was fined $100,000 personally for the leaking of newly drafted Cleveland Browns quarterback Shedeur Sanders' private number. That private number got into the hands of Jeff Ulbrich's son, Jack Ulbrich, who took it upon himself to make a prank phone call to Shedeur Sanders during the draft while he was waiting for his name to be called, posing as GM Mickey Loomis from the New Orleans Saints. Wasn't funny, wasn't nice. Shedeur Sanders kind of took it. He took it pretty good. He took it better than most. Jax and his father issued apologies. Jax issued an apology via his Instagram. Jeff Ulbrich personally apologized to Deion Sanders and Shedeur Sanders himself. Both families expressed themselves. Deion and Shedeur, they pretty much took it very, very well. Better than what it could have been. Jeff Ulbrich's going to have to pay a little bit of money over. And of course, we all know that Shedeur Sanders was drafted by the Cleveland Browns in the 5th round, 144th pick overall in this year's NFL draft. So my take on this is we all know why this was news. It's because it happened to Shedeur Sanders. Shedeur Sanders was a projected 1st round pick. He ended up getting picked in the 5th round, 144th overall. I don't think anybody expected that to happen to Shedeur Sanders. I'm good with the fining. The fining was justified to me because Jeff Ulbrich could have lost his job doing this here. The private information that he had ended up getting into the hands of his 21-year-old son, and his son making the call. And not only that, he posted it on his social media, for God's sake, making him look even more guilty. They're laughing and joking about it. He's got a friend beside him laughing and joking. And that could have got Jeff Ulbrich fired from his position, and it wasn't even his fault. But considering that he had this information and his son got a hold of it, it was because of his iPad being open. His son was able to access the iPad and get the numbers that he got. It was very poor planning on the part of Jeff Ulbrich, even though it wasn't intentional. And I know that there are people that are watching this podcast saying that there were other players that were prank phone called during this year's draft and also last year's draft and probably drafts before. I'm pretty sure there are people that are saying that. But the fact that it happened to Shedeur Sanders and he was supposed to be drafted sooner than the 5th round is why this has made news. Any player that was prank phone called during that time waiting for their number to be called in the draft, that's not fair. And that's very unfair, and that's very childish and very stupid because those players have worked their hardest, worked very hard to get where they are, waiting to be drafted, and for somebody to do something like this and be very careless and very heartless is unfair. Someone had to have gotten a hold of Jax, and it probably was his father. Let's just say it probably was his father. And he had to sit him down and explain to him the reason why this is a very punishable matter, why what he done was deplorable and not fair to any player out there. So, of course, that was what probably led to the apology that he issued on his Instagram. It was said that Jeff Ulbrich apologized to Shedeur Sanders and Coach Deion Sanders privately. He apologized to them both. Shedeur Sanders, when he was asked about it, he handled it really, really well, handled the media well with what he said and how he felt. But speaking on Shedeur Sanders, in closing to this quick hit here, I want to get to talking about other things. I really don't want to spend a lot of time on this because we got more to talk about. But, ladies and gentlemen, I thought long and hard about what happened to Shedeur Sanders during the draft. The fact that he was a number one overall or a first round draft pick, let's just say, maybe not number one overall. I felt like Cam Ward was better. I felt like Jackson Dart was better. I can understand why the New York Giants traded back into the first round to get Jackson Dart. I understand that. They're two very good quarterbacks. There were other quarterbacks taken in front of Shedeur Sanders. Jalen Milroe was taken above him. Tyler Shough, which I really was surprised that happened. I didn't think that Tyler Shough was better than Shedeur Sanders. I didn't think that Dillon Gabriel was better than Shedeur Sanders. I can make a case for Jalen Milroe probably. But Dillon Gabriel, Dillon Gabriel and Tyler Shough, not so much. I feel like Shedeur Sanders should have got looked at a lot more and considered earlier in the draft as opposed to these quarterbacks here. But I thought long and hard about this. I don't see Shedeur Sanders being a fifth-round talent. I don't think a lot of people do. But although we think that, the league has spoken and says that he is a fifth-round talent, whether we like it or not. The NFL owners, to me, and this is my opinion, the NFL owners sent a message to Shedeur Sanders. They basically said that young man, by having him drafted in the fifth round, they sent a message to that young man, and they said to him, this is not your daddy's league. This is not your daddy's team. Your daddy can't save you. That's the vibe that I got. Is the NFL wrong? Are the owners wrong for thinking that? They're not. They aren't. The league isn't fair. Life isn't fair. I felt like Shedeur got treated wrong. I felt like many owners didn't like the brashness that he had. I think that's unfair to him because what's wrong with being confident? What's wrong with loving you some you? What's wrong with that? Nothing. But apparently, to these owners, they felt like there was something wrong to it. And that's why Shedeur Sanders went further than what he did. In the words of my good man, my good friend, Jason Colenso, host of 3 from Deep, 3 times a week on Boom Broadcasting, Monday, Wednesday, Saturday at 12 p.m., talking the NBA. He said it, and I quote, "The NFL stands for not for long." And you find out who is who when they play professional football. Hopefully Shedeur Sanders gets over this and he becomes a great quarterback. I hope he does. Because what happened to him, I think, was unfair. But at the end of the day, life is unfair. The league is unfair. And if you don't fit their mold, they will find a way to get rid of you. Looking at you, Tim Tebow. It's a harsh reality, but hopefully Shedeur Sanders gets over that. Winning doesn't care how confident you are. Winning does not care. Shedeur, the league has spoken. And my man, I hope you're listening, and I hope you get past that. Quick hit number 1 is done. And we have the playoffs going on in the NHL and the NBA, as this will be your second quick hit for this episode. It has been fun watching these playoffs. This first round has been very, very entertaining in the NHL and in the NBA. We do have some games that are still going on. We do have some games that will be ending. You know, as I'm taping this, I've got some games going on right now I haven't watched, so I can go ahead and make unbiased picks. If I can make an unbiased pick for these games here in the NHL and in the NBA. So we're going to go ahead and get into it and talk about the series that have passed on, and then get into the games that are still going on. So let's go ahead and talk about the series that have passed in the NBA and the NHL. Of course, the Thunder and the Cavs getting sweeps. I felt like they were going to sweep both teams they played. The Grizz coming up short with the Thunder. And, of course, the Miami Heat coming up short to the Cavaliers. Two very, very tough teams. You could see them in the finals. You could not. So who knows? But also, too, heading on into the 3-6 matchup in the West, the Lakers and the Wolves. It was Lakers in 5, but it was actually Wolves in 5 as and Edwards and company taking out the Lakers. So Luka Laker, LeBron James are going to have early summers. I'm pretty sure old Nico over in Dallas is smiling right now, even though he got it wrong to trade Luka Doncic. With that being said, the Lakers will be watching the playoffs instead of being in them as the Wolves advance. And the Pacers and the Bucks, they had a very dramatic ending, as I had the Pacers winning in 6 games, but they actually won in 5 games, as they won the series with a game winner from Tyrese Halliburton in Game 5 to give them the win. The elder Halliburton, unfortunately, getting into the face of Giannis Antetokounmpo. Bad move, bad look for the elder John Halliburton doing that. I know you're proud of your son. I know that you've heard the fact that he's overrated. I'm sorry. He is definitely not overrated. He's played some great basketball, got the game winner to seal the series for the Pacers. Be happy for your son. You don't have to do all that extra stuff. Giannis handled it very professionally. It sucks that Tyrese Halliburton had to go in there and say that his dad was wrong, but it is what it is. As the Pacers will be moving forward, the Bucks will be home packing. Get well soon, Dame Lillard. And the Celtics and the Magic, as the Celtics winning in 5. The Magic had some injury woes this season. They went down to a 7 seed. They're a tough squad. They were better than what they were given credit for. They got 1 win against the Celtics. I saw that coming, but the Celtics just too much, too strong. Put them away in 5 games. The Celtics move on. And in the NHL, you have the Washington Capitals and the Montreal Canadiens, the young team, the young upstart Canadiens looking to take out the Washington Capitals with the all-time leader in career goals. Alexander Ovechkin on that squad is age over beauty, as the Caps able to win it 4-1. Very decisive victory in that series. Then the Tampa Bay Lightning and the Florida Panthers. I slept on our defending champions. I thought that they were going to go 7 games with the Lightning and lose. They go 5 games with the Lightning and win, as the Battle of Florida going to the Florida Panthers. Very, very decisive win in that series by the defending champions. And last but not least of the games, the home team, for me, the Carolina Hurricanes. 4-1 series win over the New Jersey Devils. A very big nail-biter of a game in 2 overtimes, with Sebastian Aho getting the game-winning goal. And the Canes advance with 7 years behind the bench as coach of the Carolina Hurricanes. Rod Brind'Amour is going to the next round yet again. So, Let's see if the Canes can give it a hump in round 2 after they got out of round 1. And now, with the remaining games that we have in the NHL and the NBA, I'm going to be playing sticker switch. Meaning, am I going to stick with the team that I had before or switch it to the other team? And we'll start with the NBA as we only have a few NBA games left. The New York Knicks playing the Detroit Pistons Thursday night. I'm going to stick with the New York Knicks, even though they could have closed the game out a couple nights ago. They didn't do so, unfortunately. But I think that even though the Detroit Pistons have had great productivity from Tobias Harris, from Dennis Schrader, and of course Cade Cunningham, I think the New York Knicks will outmatch them. Mikal Bridges coming on very well for the squad with Josh Hart, with Karl Anthony Towns. Although Jalen Brunson's been iffy with the injury, I do think the New York Knicks will outlast the Boston Celtics. So I'm sticking with the New York Knicks to go into the next series to play the Boston Celtics. They will close out that game. The Nuggets and the Clippers. That's been a fun one. I expected this to go 7 games. I have the Nuggets winning in 7. I'm going to switch that and go with the Los Angeles Clippers winning in 7 games. I think the Clips offensively have played very, very well, with Kawhi Leonard coming off an injury and playing well, a compliment to James Harden. I think the defense has been playing very well, closing down a very strong upstart Nikola Jokic and shutting down the perimeter as well, to give me the Clippers to come out of this series and play the OKC Thunder, which I think that'll be a very fun matchup there with the Los Angeles Clippers, and to the Warriors and the Rockets. The Rockets had a blowout game, big blowout game against the Golden State Warriors to close the gap and make it 3-2, but I still think the Warriors are too much. Give me the Warriors to win the series and move on to play the Minnesota Timberwolves. Then transitioning to the ice in the NHL, we got a lot of games left still. Very big bunch of games left as the Toronto Maple Leafs and the Ottawa Senators. Give me the Leafs to still keep it going. I believe they'll close out the series. They're up 3-2 right now. I think they'll close out the series against the Ottawa Senators. Brady Tkachuk with that Boston Red Sox ideology inside of his mind. I don't think they're there just yet. Give me the Leafs to close out the series on Thursday night. And then next, the Vegas Golden Knights and the Minnesota Wild. The Vegas Golden Knights are up 3-2. They've got an elimination game coming up. I think they'll get it done. Give me the Golden Knights to win it. And Marc-Andre Fleury will ride off into the sunset and retire after this being his farewell tour. And then the Oilers, the Edmonton Oilers up against the Los Angeles Kings. I picked the Kings to win the series in 6. I'm switching it around to the Oilers. The Oilers are once again doing what they have done every time they've played the Los Angeles Kings in the past 3 years, and that's outscore them. Very good offensive outputs from this Edmonton Oilers squad. I don't think that the Kings can hang with them. They gave them their best couple of games in the beginning. I think the Oilers are still going to do well with maybe the Hart Trophy front runner in Leon Draisaitl getting a lot of shots on goal. Also, too, with the man Connor McDavid. Fresh off the injury, Connor McDavid had an injury-riddled regular season. He's in the playoffs right now where he thrives. Give me the Oilers. I'm switching it around. I'm taking the Oilers in this series. Now, the Winnipeg Jets and the St. Louis Blues, which has been a very big surprise because the Blues are a very momentous team. They came in as the hottest team in all of the NHL. Going into the playoffs, they're playing the Winnipeg Jets, who are the President's Trophy winning squad. I'm sticking with the Winnipeg Jets still. I'm going to stick with them. Mark Scheifele is going to be, I don't think he's going to attend the next game if they play, because they're up 3-2 on the St. Louis Blues. I don't think he's going to be playing in this game. I think they're going to be okay. Give me the Jets to win that series on Friday. And last but not least, my childhood team, the Colorado Avalanche, playing the Dallas Stars. Of course, I had the Avalanche winning the game, but I'm going to switch it. Hopefully I'm wrong, but I'm going to switch it to the Dallas Stars winning this game. I think the Stars and Tyler Seguin playing very, very good. Tyler Seguin playing really, really good there. A very offensively sound squad. Jake Ottinger playing very, very well in goal. The problem with the Avalanche has been their goaltending, and I think that's coming back to bite them right now. They have the playmakers on offense, but I think the goaltending is what's doing it for them, and not doing it for them, might I say. So I'm switching it to the Dallas Stars. I hate to say it because Mikko Rantanen being with my Colorado Avalanche, getting traded to the Carolina Hurricanes, and then the debacle there and going to Dallas. Dallas is still a tough squad. I'm switching it around. They're going to tie it up and then win it, beating my Colorado Avalanche. That is your playoffs. Some of your scores, some of your picks, sticking and switching here on this episode of Quick Hits, and that is Quick Hit number 2. All right, now last quick hit of the show here. I want to end it by talking about one of my favorite athletes from my childhood, Mr. Shannon Sharpe. Now, he's a Hall of Fame tight end, great NFL player, incredible athlete. Unfortunately, he's in some hot water. He's being sued by a woman named Gabriella Zanega for $50 million on SA charges. Y'all know what SA is. I'm not going to get into that. So I'm saying SA just because of that. Now, Shannon Sharpe denies the charges. He denies everything, and he's looking to countersue. He's looking to have his day in court to countersue the other party. With all that being considered, Shannon Sharpe has decided to step away from ESPN First Take to deal with this issue, to focus on his family, focus on this situation at hand, his mental health, all that going on. Now, my take on this here, once again, ladies and gentlemen, I did a whole lot of thinking on this. At first, I was wondering why in the world this kept coming up in my mind. While I was focusing on the show and getting the show ready for the week, I was like, why in the world is this coming up? I'm a fan of sport. I don't really cover stuff like this, but it has something to do with sports because Shannon Sharpe, of course, Shannon Sharpe is an athlete that I love. I talked about Deion Sanders' son, Shedeur, in the very first segment. I did. And I love Deion Sanders. I grew up with Deion Sanders. Love him to death. I love Shannon Sharpe. I wasn't named after him. But the fact that someone who was big and strong and hulking like Shannon Sharpe had a first name like me and a middle and a first and last initial the same as me, I thought that was the coolest thing in the world. And I gravitated towards Shannon Sharpe. Loved him, watching him play football. And the fact that Shannon Sharpe is very entertaining. He's very polarizing. He is very talented in what he does with his work inside of media and podcasting, with Undisputed on Fox Sports Net when he was with Skip Bayless, getting on First Take with Stephen A. Smith, having a podcast, Club Shay Shay, having the Nightcap with Chad Ochocinco. He's very incredible. He's very dynamic in what he does. He was about to sign, I think that he did sign a multi-million-dollar contract with a podcast group. He had big things coming up, and then this happens. Now, all the stuff that's being put out there by the opposing party, from Gabriella, they're putting out all these texts and phone calls that make Shannon Sharpe look like he is an abuser, making him look like he is guilty of what she's saying. And then Shannon Sharpe's legal team is putting out these text messages and these phone calls that make it look like this is consensual, like this is what they agreed upon. Y'all can read all that. I'm not about to read any of that stuff on here. I'm not doing that. Not at all. No. Now, it's none of my business what goes on behind somebody else's doors. But with all this being put out there, it is now. And it's not pretty. But what I want to land my plane on is that, I debated on talking about this because I wanted to make sure that what I said was appropriate for my podcast, appropriate for Boom Broadcasting. The guys have put up a lot of work. They've done very, very well with last week's draft coverage, which has been immaculate. Great job by those guys. And then WrestleMania week beforehand, it's been great. So I don't want to say anything that's going to jeopardize any of that. So with all that being said, all of us here, including Shannon Sharpe, we're all human beings with wants and needs. And you got to remember, everything you want is not everything you need. In every relationship, whether it's a marriage, whether it's dating, whether it's consensual, or casual or whatever, whether it's a friendship, whether it's family, each side has a level of obligation. And apparently in this case, with Shannon Sharpe and Gabriella Zanega, one side wasn't obliged enough or obliged at all. So here we are with this big old lawsuit. But as a man, Shannon Sharpe, he had to understand that. He should have known that as a man. And Shannon Sharpe, he's got a lot of money. He's got a lot of money. And Gabriella, she's hard to resist. So we'll leave it at that. She's hard to resist. And he has the money and the means to afford her. And she has what he wants. We'll leave it at that again. But the longer I live, the more I hear my grandma, Miss Carrie Martin, my mom's mom, rest in peace. I can hear her just talking right now. That flesh will get you, baby. And she ain't never lied. There's just something about this flesh right here. We gotta please it. Every one of us has been tempted. We've all been there. There's no ifs, ands, or buts. It's not if, it's when. All of us have been there. You just have to govern yourself accordingly. It's hard to do. It's very hard to do. And consent, you can say consent all day long. Consent is not a defense to a lot of people. And what has to be understood is that, Shannon Sharpe, he's been doing a lot of wonderful stuff, a lot of great things inside of the podcast world, inside of the media world. Dog, you want to throw away all that hard work. Throw away that hard work, everything that you've done for someone who didn't help you build it. And that person just walk in there and tear it all down. That's a bad look right there. You may have got what you wanted, but you could lose everything that you have. And it could be taken away with you just like that. And you'll never see it again. It's hard to make it back. But that's our show for this week. Thank you very much for listening. Thank you for your time. It is my time now. Next week, hopefully we won't be talking about anything this heavy. Hopefully we'll be talking more playoffs. Hopefully we'll be talking more sports here this next coming week. It may be Tuesday, it may be Friday, who knows when I drop another episode. But continue to watch the plethora of podcasts that we have here on Boom Broadcasting. And if you haven't subscribed, make sure you do subscribe and make sure that you go through these plethora of podcasts. Our guys in here are putting in a lot of work. Thank you for your subscriptions. Thank you for your views. Thank you for being fans of sport. I'm Shannon Smith, and this is Quick Hits.
Can't fall off, now they holler he'll turn, thinking I'ma sell out, talking just to feel heard. I never listen, although they say it's strictly